If you think that Belal Muhammed has a very small chance of winning his upcoming fight at UFC 304 with Leon Edwards, I believe you are mistaken. When this fight was announced, I initially thought that yes, it was going to be very easy for Leon. But the more that I've thought about it and the more I've listened to both of these guys in the lead up, the more I'm thinking that Belal has a great shot at getting an upset here. So in order to make that case, I'm going to go back and revisit the first fight, and I want to show you a few things from that. And then I want to go through a few of the other factors that I think could make a real difference as well. But before I get to that, I'm only a few people away from my goal of 1,000 subscribers. And at that point, I am doing a giveaway, which you can find all the details for down in the description. So if you're not subscribed already, I would love to have you here for future content. Just follow the simple rules and you will have the chance to win. Also, these videos take a long time to put together, so if you enjoy it, please give it a like. So with all that out of the way, the first thing that I want to do is go back and revisit the first fight between Belal and Leon, and I want to share with you a few of the key moments from that fight, as well as my overall observations from it. The first thing that I want to say about it is that this was in no way a blowout from Leon. Yes, he definitely had the edge and won the first round, but it was a very basic 10-9 type of a round. And for the most part, it was a pretty uneventful round with only a few significant moments. It was pretty clear that Leon had the cleaner striking, but it wasn't such a gap that Belal won't be able to make adjustments for it. Now, their first fight only lasted 1 round and a few seconds into the second round. And during those entire 5 minutes, I really only counted a handful of significant strikes that landed. And of those, there were very few that seemed to have real impact. Now, I think the most significant exchange in the entire round was a kick that Leon landed on Belal's head. And this kick was very similar to the kick that he used to knock out Kamaru Usman in their second fight. And while I don't think it landed with quite the same force as the one he knocked out Kamaru with, it was pretty damn hard and it landed flush to the side of Belal's head. And I really have to give credit to Belal here because while he did get rocked from that kick, he was nowhere near being out from it. But don't take my opinion for it. Let's go ahead and watch that moment so that you can see for yourself what I'm talking about. Now we're going to watch it from the angle that they were showing during the fight, and I'm going to let you hear the audio so you can hear just how loud this kick was. And then I'll show you the slow motion version that they showed as a highlight, which is also a much better angle. But first, here's the kick in full speed with audio as shown on the broadcast.
Unable to do so. He's been in Las Vegas. Oh, head kick. Wow, wobbly legs. And now he's going in.
Now let's watch that one more time.
Unable to do so. He's been in Las Vegas. Oh, head kick. Wow, wobbly legs. And now he's going in.
So there you can see how hard that kick was and hear it as well. And like I said, you have to give Belal credit for taking that shot. Now let's look at it from the slow motion angle that they showed as a highlight. Because from this angle, you can see just how flush it lands on the side of Belal's head. And like I said, it was very similar to the kick that knocked out Kamaru Usman. And you have to keep in mind, at this point, Leon is much fresher than he was in that Kamaru fight. And while it's impossible to know what power level each of those landed with, they look very similar. And until going back and watching this fight again, I don't think I really had that positive of an opinion about Belal's chin. But after seeing this, my opinion of that changed dramatically. And yes, I know he was knocked out by Vicente Luque, but back in the day, Vicente was a tough fight for anybody, but he did come back and avenge that loss later, and we all can't forget that Leon was almost knocked out by Nate Diaz. So now that we've looked at the only footage that exists of these two actually fighting, let's consider a couple of the other things that might be in Belal's favor as well. First and foremost, regardless of what we have seen from Leon Edwards in terms of his improved grappling, he's still not a great grappler. And the last example of that was his fight against Colby. And yes, he did have a few moments where he had control in those grappling exchanges, but they were few and far between. And for the most part, Colby dominated that segment of the fight. Also, if you go back and look at the second fight he had with Kamaru Usman, outside of the first exchange where Leon ended up on top, Kamaru dominated all the rest of the grappling exchanges within that fight. And while I'm aware that there wasn't much of that to look at from the third fight, it's hard to say how much of that was because Kamaru was timid after getting knocked out. So the bottom line here is there is real opportunity to beat Leon if you take him on in the grappling area. And what do we know about Belal? Well, he has been working with one of the strongest grappling teams in the world with both Khabib and Islam. So it's probably fair to assume that coming into this fight, Belal's grappling is going to be on another level from what it was before. And that could present a real challenge to Leon. Now, the second thing that stands out to me as to why I think Belal might have an edge here is I just believe that he wants this more. Leon has won the belt and now had 2 title defenses, and you already hear him talking about maybe wanting to move up to 185 and take that belt too. So I'm not sure that he's giving the focus on Belal that he needs to be giving him. And when I do hear him talk about Belal, he seems to sort of brush him off and treat their first fight as if it was something that had a full conclusion. Meanwhile, Belal has been grinding to get that belt, taking on pretty much everybody. His confidence is at an all-time high after dominating Gilbert Burns and Shaun Brady, as well as working with his new team. And like I said, I think the desire here is just leaning in Belal's favor. Now, if we look at the striking perspective, I think Belal is the one who has more room for improvement coming into this next fight. And while Leon is looking at this as a redo of a fight that he already won, Belal's going to be able to look at it and take the few areas where Leon was effective and try to shut those down. And the typical game plan for Leon that he did find some success with in that last fight is using his low damage shots to set up that high left kick. Now, like we already looked at, he landed that high left kick flush on Belal's head and Belal survived. So that's certainly going to be a confidence booster for Belal going into this fight. But obviously he will want to avoid doing that again. And so I feel like he's going to have more to study here in terms of how to make improvements for the next time. And finally, the last point I'm going to make in terms of Belal having an advantage coming into this fight is that he is looking like he's in the best shape of his life. I mentioned earlier how he's training with Khabib and their team, and he has discussed in multiple interviews how that has been transformative for his game. On top of that, he's been working with a new nutritionist and really keeping his fitness and his weight under good control. And what that suggests to me is that he will be able to do a 5-round fight with a heavy amount of grappling, no problem. And if that's the type of fight that he pursues with Leon as opposed to the striking battle, he has a very high chance of winning this fight. So now that I've given you those points to consider, let me talk about my prediction for this matchup. I feel like the easy thing to do as a creator would just be to pick Leon, because most people think he's going to win, and so that's just the safe way to go. But I think the outcome of this fight is going to totally depend on the game plan that Belal uses. If he comes out and uses the leveled up grappling that he's had from working with Khabib and Islam, and if he is in fact in the type of shape it would take to do that for a full 5 rounds, then I see the probability of him winning this fight very high. Because like I said earlier, even though Leon has gotten much better with his grappling, he's still really not strong at it, and there's a lot of opportunity to take him down and control him on the ground. Now, on the other hand, if he comes out and tries to make it a stand-up fight like he did in their first match, then I'm going to shift the winning edge back over to Leon. Because even though I'm sure that Belal has gotten much better in the stand-up, Leon is still going to have an edge with his reach and his speed, and so I just think that's a much harder route for Belal to take and win. Now, from a standpoint of the outcome of this fight, I think the odds of it being a decision are exceptionally high. I really don't see either one of these guys getting a finish. But if we do see a finish in this fight, I'm going to guess it would be a submission by Belal or a knockout TKO from Leon. So when it comes to betting, I always like to try to take an approach of looking at probabilities as opposed to hard predictions. Because if you do that, then you can place strategic bets that can act as hedges against your primary thesis if that doesn't work. But the bottom line here is I think the outcome of this fight is in Belal's hands, and it all depends on what approach he decides to take. So those are my thoughts. Be sure to let me know down in the comments, what do you think about this fight? Who do you think has the edge, and how do you think it's going to end? And before I let you go, be sure to check out the giveaway details because I'm hoping to be able to do that this week. And remember, if you enjoyed the video, give it a like and make sure you subscribe to the channel because I'd love to have you back in the future. As always, I appreciate you being here, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.